Normally, the first thing you do in Mario Kart is grab an item, so naturally I asked myself, can I still win if I avoid every item? I'm taking this challenge through the first 4 cups, and I'm following 2 rules. Rule 1, I can't touch a single item box, and if I hit one, I have to reset. And secondly, I have to get first place in every race against the 23 CPUs I'm racing against. Starting off on Mario Bros. Circuit, you can easily avoid the first item set by just driving in the off-road or taking the tire cut, but the issue arises once you get to the second set. At first I tried jumping off the ledge to respawn after the boxes, but Lakitu just put me right back in front of them. The next thing I tried was driving between the item boxes slowly, but I found it to be really difficult to get consistently, and usually you would just get an item even if you're not touching. But then I noticed the CPUs leave a gap in the boxes when they grab one, and so I followed a CPU behind a box and was able to get through without grabbing it. The rest of the track was easy, as I just had to drive around the other item box and use that strategy on laps 2 and 3, and got first place. Going into Crown City, I got on the rail to avoid the first set, but got stuck at the second one. At first I tried driving around the side, but that didn't work. But luckily I figured out you can just jump out of bounds to skip the boxes. For the next 3, I was easily able to drive around them and jump off to avoid these. And finally I used the left side of the glider to avoid this item set, and the rest were really easy to dodge, and I finished first. Going into Whistle Stop Summit, I was able to drive around the first box, use the rail to get around the second box, and then sticking to the right rail to avoid the rest of the items, and making this track an easy first place. Moving on to DK Spaceport, you can avoid the first item set by tricking over the first item boxes, and then riding the rail to avoid these boxes on every single U-turn corner. After the bounce pad section, I was able to right trick onto the rail and use that to avoid these boxes. And the rest of the track is just jumping on the rails at every single turn to avoid the item boxes, which finishes up the Mushroom Cup. Starting off the Flower Cup on Desert Hills, this one is easy as it's a very open track, so you can just drive around every single item box. However, because this track lacks a lot of shortcuts without items, I had a close finish at the end, but was able to draft the CPU getting first. Moving on to Shy Guy Bazaar, you can skip the first item set by jumping onto the rail, then tricking onto the rope, and riding that up. Take the grass to get around this set, or you can jump above onto the rail and right trick like I did here. When you get to the glider ramp, all you have to do is go off the right side and you'll dodge the items, making this track super easy. Moving on to Wario Stadium, you can ride up the wall to the right to avoid this first set. You can avoid the second set by staying up top and tricking over them, or go between the boxes. The issue begins as you get to the third item set, as the boost ramps push you towards them. The first thing I tried to do was charge up out of bounds, but I got respawned right back in front of the boxes. So I went back to the strategy where I had to wait for the CPUs to cross the boxes, and I was able to grab some coins to increase my top speed, which would help me win the race later on, and I waited for them, went up the ramp, and crossed the boxes. And then I repeated that strategy on laps 2 and 3 by collecting coins and following the CPU through the shortcut. Moving on to Airship Fortress, I jumped from the left railing to the right railing to avoid the items. Now for the second set, they are inside the building, so there's no rails to use, so instead I charge jumped onto the wall and was able to get over them. Coming off the glider into the spiral, I had to do the same thing, so I charge jumped on the wall and got over them. And by repeating those strategies on laps 2 and 3, I was able to finish in first place easy, finishing off the Flower Cup. So starting the Star Cup on DK Pass, I dodged the first set by charge jumping onto the wall and jumping over them. By sticking to the left, I'm able to dodge the second item set, and I take this wall cut and bounce on the trees to be able to catch up to the CPU in first place, and then stick to the right to avoid the third item set. Not too much more to say about this one. I used those strategies again and finished first place. Now let's move on to the next one. I start off Stardew Peak by jumping off the map to respawn after the boxes, but I later found out that you can actually just charge jump over them and avoid falling off. Going up to the glider set, I had to drift to my right and then immediately hold left and spam trick and I was able to stay in bounds without Lakitu pulling me out to avoid these items. And then just drive through the middle in the water and I'm good. And after many attempts of not falling off on the tricks, I was able to beat the CPUs and get first place. Sky High Sunday started off easy as all I had to do was drive to the right of these items, and then charge jump onto the rail to avoid these items, and finally jump off the road onto the rideable wall to avoid these items. That one was absolutely the easiest in the challenge as I didn't even have to try. Now let's move on to the next one. Starting off on Wario Shipyard, it looks like this one is impossible due to the walls and boost ramp. But all you have to do is charge jump onto the rail and you'll go over the items and even get the boost. For the second set, just go to the right and then go in the middle of the boxes. And for the last set, just charge jump onto the rail and jump over the boxes. And that's it for Wario Shipyard, and this wraps up the Star Cup. Starting the Shell Cup on Koopa Troopa Beach, you can easily avoid the first and second item sets by just driving around them in the sand, as this track is a very large open world beach, so it's very easy. And since this track is a literal oval, those are all the item sets, making this the easiest track in the challenge. The first set on Faraway Oasis is avoidable by going on the rail to the left or right. Now the second set is a little tricky, as if you go off the ramp the wrong way, you'll just end up hitting it when you try to avoid them. So what you need to do is go off the ramp to either the left or the right, and just land on the ropes on either side and you'll avoid the items. And then for the final set, you can just go on either side to avoid them, but make sure you choose the left, because if you go on the right, you'll probably fall in the water like I did. And then just repeating those strategies on laps 2 and 3. This one is very easy and beatable. For Peach Stadium, for the first set, all you have to do is go on either the left or right rail and easily avoid the items, and then you can do this pipe Nisk. For the second set, go off either the left or right of the boost panel and just spam left or right tricks to land on the track. And then for the final set, you can just go to the left on the grass and easily avoid it. And then repeat that on laps 2 and 3 and you'll easily finish first. And that was the first 15 tracks itemless. If you want to see the last 15 tracks, let me know by liking, subscribing, and commenting, and I'll see you next time.